over the course of those 4 weeks, we'll have a look at postural tension that is created just by day-to-day living and all the activities that come with that. And then also stress really contributes to tension in the body. So we'll work with balancing these effects and creating some mobility around the neck, the shoulders, and the back, and then crucially, also creating stability in the muscles around the joints. And we need both because when the brain realizes that the muscles and the tissues are weak or unstable, the nervous system responds by sending a message to those tissues to tighten up. So muscles that are tight are also often weak. So we need to send a message to the nervous system that it no longer needs to do this tightening up business. So we need to sort of make sure that we can strengthen and stabilize the muscles and also soothe the nervous system with some mobilization and releasing stretches. And then those messages will stop being communicated in the same way and the tension will go away because the muscles are getting stronger. Now, of course, this is not going to happen in 4 1-hour sessions, as you can imagine. So this is why the recordings can come in really pretty handy. So we'll use targeted exercises, and some of them will be quite subtle. So don't expect, major things to happen. Some of them are stronger. So go slowly, stay away from pain like you would in any yoga class. Look after yourself. So we're working with parts of the body that are vulnerable in themselves, like the neck and the lower back are some of the most vulnerable parts of the body because they're very mobile. And the shoulders are actually the most unstable joints in the body. So just bearing that in mind, so even subtle movements can sometimes feel quite strong. And if you're working with hypermobility or back pain or wrist issues, take good care of yourself. Let's start the practice. So take your blanket to one end of the mat. I mean, for me, this is going to be the back end of my mat, but it doesn't really matter. And it's a flat blanket, very flat. And this is for your head. And then come into a constructive rest pose. So place your feet flat on the floor and then roll down. And the blanket is just underneath the head. So once you're lying down, you can adjust that, placing the arms by your side. Keep pushing down into the feet and releasing the pressure very swiftly so that you're starting to rock the body slightly on the mat. So the head will be supported with a blanket so that it's not sort of scraping along the mat, but you're just putting pressure and you're releasing so that you're vibrating the tissue in the whole body. And it's a little bit of a sort of shifting, almost a little bit like a seesaw action, but more of a shifting forwards and backwards. So gentle rocking, shifting, vibrating action. And keep going with that for a little bit. And you could close your eyes here. So this is just attuning us to arrive in the body and just a little bit of loosening of superficial tightness that might be there. You may notice that the shoulder blades are sort of releasing a little bit as things are shifting. So just shifting, keep pressing and releasing. And this is very swift. So you're not using any holding. You're just shifting forwards and backwards. And then just last few rounds of that. So very loose. Feeling the pelvis rocking. There's a gentle tipping action in the pelvis happening. And then let the body come to stillness. And just relax the body, maybe drop the knees in towards each other and take a moment, just notice how this feels now. The effects of that rocking practice, the residue of that. Now, lift your arms up and shift the blanket underneath or out from underneath the head and behind the head and slip your hands underneath the blanket. So the palms face up, your arms are on the floor overhead, the palms are pressing into the blanket. Then lift the blanket about 5 centimeters, about 2 inches or so off the ground. So the blanket is draped over your palms, over your arms, and now reach your fingertips away from you. So you're making the body a little bit longer and lift the hands up a little higher. So maybe they're 10, 15 centimeters away from the ground. Now see if you can press your little fingertips into the blanket a little bit more, just so there is a slight external rotation in the upper arms. So this is an arm position that we would have in, for example, downward facing dog. And then lower your hands back down again so that they're hovering just above the ground. And imagine now that the blanket is a little heavier than it actually is, and keep pressing up into the blanket. The little fingers particularly reaching up so they're a little higher than the thumbs. Now at the same time, draw your lower ribs down towards the pubic bone so that the lower back is coming a little bit closer to the floor. And then keep reaching the fingertips away from you as well. So you're sort of pressing up, although the hands are barely off the ground, but imagine the blanket has a little bit of weight, and the pressure up is also matched by a reaching back with the fingertips and by a drawing down of the lower ribs. And, I essentially just keep talking so that we can stay here for a little longer because initially there's not an awful lot going on. And then after a little while, it's a bit more interesting. So think about lower back towards floor. So the abdominals are engaging, let's say about 40% or so. And then check that you're still breathing. Do not hold the breath. See if you can keep the breath smooth. And then inhale. And with the exhale, let the backs of the hands come all the way to the floor. And if you need to bend your elbows, that's absolutely fine, of course. If the shoulders are too tight to have them all the way overhead. You could also take them a little bit further out away from each other, the arms. Now lift your feet off the floor and bring your knees over the hips and bring your shins parallel with the floor. So the arms are still in position here and the backs of the hands can press into the floor. Take an inhale, you can flex your feet. Exhale, take your knees over to the left and let them hover there. You may not go very far because before you're going to start rolling. So stay there. Then inhale, come back to center. And exhale, go to the right. It might really only be a very small distance before the left shoulder lifts off. Inhale, come back. Exhale, move the knees to the left. So the right shoulder could come off a touch, but stay stable. Inhale, come back to center. Try and squeeze your legs together. Exhale, knees to the left. Inhale, come back to center. And exhale, knees to the right. Inhale, back to center. And then exhale, take the knees into the chest. And then place your feet flat on the floor. And let the arms slip out. And as you're slipping the hands out from underneath the blanket, slip the blanket back underneath your head. And then take the arms down by your side. Notice how that feels in the shoulders now that the arms are in that different position again. And then let's start a different way. Turn your head over towards the left side. And then shift your left ear back a little bit. So imagine that you want to create a straight line in the neck vertebra all the way down into the upper back vertebra. And then start the rocking movement again. So you're pushing into the feet and releasing really swiftly, very loosely, so that you're rocking forwards and backwards. Your feet are on the floor, the hips stay on the ground, the hips stay on the ground. You push and release your feet. And if you're at all unsure about this movement, then come up to a place where you can see me, because it's quite useful to get this right so that you're using minimum effort. This is not something that is effortful. This is something that is vibrating the tissue, the connective tissue, gentle rocking movement. And keep going for a few more rounds. And then release. Now lift the head back to center, and then turn the head over to the other side. And as you arrive there, shift your right ear back a little bit. So retract the head back a little bit so that the cervical spine, the neck, is in line with the upper back, the thoracic spine. And then start the rocking again. And keep your hips on the floor. The sacrum stays on the floor. Think about moving your knees forwards and backwards. Good. So you're going forwards and backwards rather than sideways. Yes. And the vibration, the rippling effect of this travels all the way through from the knees, the hips, the torso, into the shoulders, the neck, and the head. Taking the last few rounds here on the side. And then release. And with care, bring the head back to center. And then you could hug the knees into the chest and place the hands to the backs of the thighs and take a few rocks up to sit. And if rocking doesn't work so well for you, then roll to one side and come up to sit. And if rocking does work, then maybe take 3, 4, 5 rocks until eventually you land in a seated position, and then come to a comfortable cross-legged position, and you can roll up your blanket or towel and place it underneath your sitting bones so that the hips are higher than the knees. If you prefer sitting in a kneeling pose, that can also work, but otherwise any cross-legged position is fine. Reach your arms out in front of you and touch your palms together, and take an inhale, and then exhale. Tuck your chin and round your spine back, reach your fingertips further forward. Inhale, lift the chest towards the wrists, pull the wrists back, bend the elbows, open the arms wide. And exhale, round your spine and touch the palms together in front of you. It's like a cat stretch. Inhale, wrists to breastbone, open it up, maybe making soft fists as you stretch out. And then exhale, rounding. So we're mobilizing the spine and the shoulders and the neck. Inhale, wrists to heart and open it up. Exhale, rounding, and 2 more of the same. Inhale, open up. Keep the neck long, maybe move the head if that's helpful. Exhale, rounding. Last one like this, inhaling, opening up, move your wrists back, and then exhale, touch the palms. Now we're going to go side to side. So inhale, pull your right hand back to the heart, lift the heart, and then move the right hand all the way behind you. And exhale, round forward. So this is the same as before. Then left hand, inhale, pull the left hand back, a little bit like you're pulling a bow. And exhale, rounding. Inhale, right hand, pull it back. Exhale, reach forward, round the spine. Inhale, left hand, pull it back, lift the heart, lengthen the spine. Exhale, round as you reach the fingers actively forward. One more round. Inhale, right side. Exhale, round. Inhale, left side. And exhale, round. Lovely, guys. And then come to center. Inhale, wrists so hard. Open it up just once. Exhale, rounding. And then inhale, sit up tall. And then place your right elbow into the right side rib cage with the palm turned up. And place your left hand on top of the forearm. Now press down through the left hand and press up through the right hand. So nothing is moving, but you should be working pretty hard here. So you can think about, pressing as firmly as you wish, at least 50% pressure, if not slightly more. So we're engaging the bicep. A lot of our actions that we take are push actions in yoga practice, if you have a regular yoga practice. So this is a pulling action. And then release and swap sides. Pressing down with the right hand, pressing up with the left forearm. And keep pressing. So a lot of the push actions that we take, plank, downward dog, chaturanga, they strengthen the triceps and they result in a slight forward rotation of the shoulders over time. And then release. Take your elbows to the sides of the waist and take your hands out. Palms are up. Now see if you can keep your lower ribs in, but ease your thumbs back. And some of you can lower the hands. The wrists are in line with the elbows. Angela, even slightly lower. Yes, good. Right. Lovely. That one I find quite interesting because it's supposed to be so simple. It looks so simple, but there seems to be a lot going on. And release. You can shake it out a little bit. Now change the crossing of your legs. And we're going to do the biceps curl once more. This time we take a dynamic form. So press left hand into right forearm and then press together, move up and down. And you don't have to synchronize this with a breath. Just make sure that you are indeed breathing and you're pressing and applying counter pressure. So of course, one hand, the left hand here has the push action, but the right hand has the pull action or the right arm. And then release and swap sides. So the elbow comes into the rib cage, press down with the right hand. And you can see, sometimes I go too far back, so you have to be fairly close to the wrist and then lift and lower. And then release. So essentially, I mean, if you look at my shoulders, you can really clearly see, and I'm not saying this is just from yoga, but I'm sure it's a contributing factor, how they're rotating in when I want them a little bit more here. So this is the natural state that the muscles pull to, and this is the sort of desired state, I guess, in some ways. Take an inhale and reach the arms out. So this is why the pull actions are really useful. And then exhale, one arm underneath the other. Let's take Garudasana arms, backs of the hands together or palms together. Lift the elbows up. Now see what happens when you round the spine a little bit, rounding in. See what happens when you go side to side a little bit. So you may feel tension in different parts of the shoulders and the neck here. See what happens when you lift the chest a little bit. And then release and swap sides. Going the other way around. Lifting the elbows up initially, hands away from the face. And moving side to side. Maybe the head moves in the opposite direction. Rounding the spine, reaching the elbows forward a little bit more. Lifting the chest up a little bit more. And then release. Interlace your hands behind your back and keep your elbows at least softly bent. Keep your wrists separated and then lift the arms away from the body. So don't try and go for something like this that may feel more satisfying, but retract, and this is particularly important if you have hypermobile elbows. Keep the elbows bent, and when the wrists stay separated, there's more integrity in the shoulder joint. When you just press the wrists together, often there's more compression. And then soften and just swap around the interlace the fingers and then do it one more time. Lifting the arms back behind you, elbows bent, wrists separated. Keep the lower ribs drawing down towards the pubic bone. And then exhale, release. Now come onto the hands and the knees. And if you wish, you can place a blanket underneath your knees if the knees are sensitive. And take your hands away from each other and have the fingers pointing out and place your hands just outside of your mat. So it's a very wide stance for the hands. And then shift the weight side to side. Now, see how this works. If you have wrist issues, then you're probably not shifting quite as far. So keep it comfortable. If this is not quite working out for you, let me know. Now go into a rotational movement. So you come forward more and to the side and then back. And one elbow bends and the other arm extends and then it swaps as you go around. So this might be a bit stronger for wrist issues. So you may want to stay with the previous shifting side to side situation. Now go in the other direction. So this is creating stability in the shoulder joint. So we're sort of alternating between stability and strength building and mobility. And occasionally we add a little stretch. And then a release down. And you can sit down for a moment. We're going to work with protraction and retraction of the shoulder blades, which can sometimes be a little difficult to feel. Basically, protraction is a movement of the shoulder blades away from the spine, and retraction is a movement of the shoulder blades towards the spine. So this is protraction, this is retraction. So it's a broadening and a squeezing. And you can do this a few times as you're sitting, just to try it out. But we'll do it on all fours, which is a lot harder. So come back to your all fours position. This time, place the wrists underneath the shoulders, neutral spine, navel is in. And then see if you can retract, squeeze the shoulder blades together. And protract, separate the shoulder blades away from the spine. And do this a few times. And notice how it feels. For me, this is something that is really difficult to do. Don't let your belly hang down, so keep the navel in, try and keep the spine really straight, spacious, which is easier said than done. Now, shift your knees back or walk your hands forward a little bit and come into more of a plank position. And you can lift your shins off the ground and cross the right shin behind the left. So you're in front of your kneecap. So it should feel okay for the knees. And then do the same thing again. Retract, squeeze the shoulder blades, protract, broaden. And do it a few times. So this is what I mean by subtle. Subtle is not necessarily easy, but there's no sort of big, maybe, let's say, satisfying movement, but instead it could be quite small and maybe even a little bit tricky. Now, Stay with this. If this was quite tricky, stay with your knees down. You could stay on all fours. If you sort of think you got the movement, try the same in plank a few times. Keep the navel in, don't sag. It's just a movement that happens in the shoulder blades, squeezing together, separating away from each other. So the squeezing is sometimes what we involuntarily get when we don't quite have the strength for chaturanga. And the broadening is the opposite, which is what we want in chaturanga. Good, nice. And then bring your knees back to the ground and come all the way down onto your belly. And as you do, you could just shift the blanket forward so that your frontal hip bones are now supported by the blanket. If you don't need that, you could just release or remove the blanket to the side for a moment. Place your hands on top of each other and place your forehead on top of the hands and soften the shoulders away from the ears, so don't let them collapse. Activate your legs. Reach back through the tiptoes. Make your legs a little bit longer. Then take an inhale, lift the right leg off the ground. Keep the leg straight. Exhale, take the leg out to the right side. It's still hovering. Inhale, bring it back towards center. It's still hovering. Exhale, take the leg to the side. Doesn't need to be a big movement. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale to the right. Inhale to center, we do it twice more. Exhale to the right. Inhale to center, the leg is lifted the whole time. Exhale to the right. Inhale to center, that's it, good guys. Exhale, release the leg down. Take a breath. Check that your shoulders are still relaxed. Then I don't care. If it feels good to flex, I don't flex them personally, but if it feels good for you to flex them, that's fine. But keep the leg straight, that's the main thing. Take an inhale and lift the left leg. And exhale, keep it lifted, take it out to the side. So the leg is straight, and I sort of keep my foot pretty relaxed, to be honest. Inhale, bring it back to center, and exhale out to the side. 3 more. Inhale to center, and exhale to the side. Inhale to center, exhale to the side. So this is nice back strengthening walk. 1 more. Inhale to center, and exhale to the side. Bring it back into center, inhale, and then exhale, release that leg down. Rest for a moment, shoulders relaxed. Now, take your arms back by your side and turn the palms up towards the ceiling. Take an inhale and lift the arms, the upper body, and the legs off the ground, Shalabhasana. Keep breathing. Press your palms up toward the ceiling. Slow ujjayi breaths, supporting the physical activity with your breathing. Keep pressing the palms up towards the ceiling. Keep your neck long. Beautiful. With your next inhale, sweep your arms out wide and turn the palms down like airplane arms. And the palms are maybe, 20, 30 centimeters above the ground. As if you were still enjoying it. Keep breathing. Yes, beautiful. You could even think about reaching your toes back towards the space behind you. Nice. Then, last thing, inhale, reach your arms forward and turn the palms to face each other. Keep your neck long. If your neck is getting a little tight, then turn the head side to side a few times for the last few breaths here. See if you can still support the posture with your breath. And then release. Place your hands on top of each other. Maybe the other hand is on top. Release your forehead down. And if it's comfortable, turn your head to one side so that this is a little bit of a neck stretch. If that's a bit much for the neck, then keep the head centered. Then turn the head to the other side if you've turned it. Now place the hands underneath the shoulders, bring the head to center, and then press up to all fours and make a roll with your blanket or your towel. So placing that roll in front of you, sit back on your heels, place your wrists on that roll, and then come into a little child's pose here. So let the forehead come to the floor. If the forehead doesn't touch the floor, you may want a book or a brick underneath the forehead. And just take a moment to soften, but still keep a sense of dropping the outer arms down. So there's a little bit of an external rotation going on in your upper arms. Now, to make this a little bit more interesting, you may have to lift the head just a few centimeters off the floor to make this work. At least I have to. Then keep everything else as it is, but lift your wrists off the blanket so that now your arms are hovering up in the air. Then take an inhale and come all the way up to sit, reaching the arms up. Then, in slow motion, come back down so that the last thing to touch down is the wrists to the blanket. So try and get the torso down first, keep the arms lifted, then eventually releasing the wrists down. This is, again, good shoulder stabilizing work. Lift the head if needed, lift your arms. Then take an inhale and come up. So just the coming up is sort of maybe the least interesting part of this. The coming down is not so interesting in the beginning, but then eventually it becomes very interesting if you keep the arms lifted and then release the head down, relax. Then lifting the head, lifting the wrists. Take an inhale and lift up to sit, arms up. And then exhale, fold forward slowly. Keep the wrists lifted. Release the chest down. Eventually release the wrists down. Yes, very nice. Good. Then let's take one more. Lift the head, lift the wrists. Everything else stays as it is. Beautiful. Then lift up. Arms come up. Then fold back forward slowly and eventually release the wrists down. And from here, we're going to take it into a side stretch. Lift the torso away from the legs, just slightly inhale. Exhale, walk your hands over to your left side. And walk as far as you can. Keep your arms straight, both arms straight. Get your fingers way over to the left, but keep your right sitting bone way down. And then eventually place your left hand on your right hand, and maybe you can crawl your right fingertips away and out to the left a little bit more. And then maybe you can drop the right sitting bone down in toward the right heel a little bit more. Then take an inhale and walk your hands back to center. And exhale, walk your hands over to your right side, both arms straight, if you have space for this. Eventually, placing the right hand on the left hand and crawling the left fingertips over to the right a little bit more. Keeping the left sitting bone very heavy. And then take an inhale and come back. And exhale, soften down. Now walk your hands in towards you, come up to all fours, and bring your forearms onto the blanket, bring your elbows onto the blanket, keep your hips back, but walk the shoulders forward. Then lift your hands up and touch your fingertips together, and the forehead may be on the blanket, or you can snuggle the head slightly behind the blanket. So your upper arms slide forward on that blanket roll. The elbows are maybe sticking out slightly in front of the blanket, and then the chest comes towards the floor. and forehead on the blanket or slightly behind the blanket. And this is a useful arm variation for this anahatasana to make sure that the shoulders don't collapse. If the shoulders are very mobile and we keep our arms straight in this pose, they collapse quite easily. So this is a good way of counteracting that. And then release your hands towards the floor in front of you and hug the belly in and walk your way up onto all fours. You can unroll the blanket and place the blanket underneath the knees and come into a forearm, not a forearm, sorry, a plank position with your knees on the ground once more. Now walk your hands way out outside of the mat, and rather than turning the fingers out this time, turn the fingers in. Now this may not work for everyone, and certainly if you have wrist issues, I would suggest you keep your fingers facing forward. And you know, for me, I almost have to stick my bum out a little bit to get my hands in place, and then I can adjust and bring the shoulders forward again. You can lift your shins and bring the left shin behind the right. Inhale, gaze is slightly in front of you on the floor. Exhale, bend your elbows. Inhale, come up. So this is a variation of chaturanga. Exhale, bend the elbows. And this keeps the shoulder blades from winging. Inhale, come up. Exhale, bend elbows. Inhale, come up. Exhale, bend. Inhale, come up. And exhale, come all the way down and onto your belly. Then turn your fingers forward and prop yourself up on your fingertips so you're really lifted high. The elbows point up to the ceiling, tuck the chin in, and then we're going to wave the neck. So take an inhale, chin in, then lift the chin forward, look forward, reach the chin forward, open the throat, exhale, bring the chin down. So just a little wave. Inhale, chin in, lifting the head, lifting the chin, looking forward, reaching the chin actively forward. Exhale, release down. Let's do it one more time. Inhaling, reaching the chin forward, opening the throat. Exhale, release the chin down. Now, same thing, but we add the rest of the spine. Inhale, lift the shoulders a little higher. Now the head follows the movement of the spine, unraveling into cobra. Exhale, breastbone forward, then down, chin forward, then down, chin in. Inhale, lift the shoulders, open the heart, then open the throat. You don't have to come up very high. Exhale, chin forward and release back down. And one more time, inhale, waving up and waving down. And then place the hands underneath you, lift up to all fours and come up to stand from here. Now, if you only have one book or brick, then roll up your blanket and you'll use the blanket roll. And if you have two, then use your two books or bricks or whatever you have. So you have to see how it's going. But you're standing with one thing, let's say one brick, between your legs. And this could be a rolled blanket. The other thing should be sturdy, maybe a book. A book will work well for this. And you're sort of squeezing the legs together, and we're just using the thing between our thighs to find a sense of grounding and a sense of the midline. Then place your, I'm just going to keep calling it brick, but you just use what you have. Place it on the top of your head, and the fingertips curl around the edges, and then press the head up into the brick and resist. So the fingers gently pull down, but not so much to in any way crunch the neck, but just so that you can actively push the head up into the brick. So we keep that axial elongation through the spine, including the cervical spine, the neck vertebrae. Good. And then release. And just feel for a moment, how does that feel? How does the neck feel here? Stay just where you are and take your brick to your right temple. And then with the right hand, like you're sort of, it's almost a little bit like you're holding a phone, but the brick presses into the temple. I have to angle the brick forward a little bit because I have my earpods in so that you can hear me better. The elbow sort of sticks out to the side, so lift it up and out to the side. Now think about keeping your face turned forward completely, so don't turn the head. Press the brick into the head and resist with the head. And think about maybe 15% pressure. And if it's comfortable for you, you could increase that pressure to maybe 25, 30, even 40%. But if your neck is very vulnerable at the moment, you want to approach these things slowly. This isometric work is really amazing work, but you have to ease yourself into it. Release, and then swap sides. So the brick comes into the temple, the left elbow lifts, and then you're pressing brick into head, head into brick. And don't be tempted to turn the head. So keep that vision straight ahead. Maybe increasing the pressure for the last few breaths. Make sure you do keep breathing. And then release. Now place the brick to the forehead and hold the palms just against the brick with the fingers facing up. And then press your forehead into the brick and think about moving the chin forward a little bit. But then, of course, there's also the counter pressure of the hands into the brick. So we're working with the deep neck flexors for this. So you can probably feel the neck working pretty strongly as you press the forehead forward. And then release. And now take the brick to the back of the head and hug your elbows in, and don't crunch the neck. So keep this really spacious here and press the brick in, lift your elbows up. You can even sort of pull up just a tiny bit on the brick as you apply that pressure and counter pressure. And now we're working with the throat muscles, the deep throat muscles. And then release. Now we're going to do very similar things, but we'll work dynamically. So start by placing the brick to the right side of the head, elbow comes out, pressure, counter pressure. Now let the head win so that the head rotates, and then let the hand win so that the head rotates all the way in the opposite direction. Keep applying pressure and counter pressure. Come back, letting the head win, turning all the way around, and then letting the hand win. All the way to the other shoulder, and then come back to center. And release. And just notice in between sides how it feels. And place the brick to the left side. Lift the left elbow up. Release the shoulder down. Pressure, counter pressure. Letting the head win. And letting the hand win. So go slowly and keep breathing. You do not need to synchronize this with a breath. And again, letting the head win. And letting the hand win. And then come to center. And release the brick. Notice how it feels. Now we're going to go sideways. So rather than rotation, we're going to go lateral flexion. which can be a little bit complicated to differentiate. So start on the right side again and lift the elbow and then tip the right ear to the shoulder and lift back up. Keep pressing and tip the left ear to the shoulder. Try not to rotate. This is really pretty hard. Come back up and again, the right ear to right shoulder and back up and left ear and keep pressing the head up and come to center and release. And just notice how it feels. Then swap sides, pressing the hand into the brick, the head into the brick, lifting the elbow. Then tip the left ear to the left shoulder and lift back up. And right ear to the right shoulder, still pressing the head up into the brick. And come up. And swap sides slowly. And come up. Great. And then take it to the other side. And come up. And release. Then we're going to take head backwards and forwards. And the first one, we're going to place the brick to the forehead, palms up, and pressure, counter pressure, chin towards chest. Pick it back up. Let the hands win. Now, keep lifting the head out of the neck as you tip back. No need to go far. Then come back forward. Then coming back up, and again, particularly as you go back here, do not crunch into the neck. Keep lifting the head away from the neck. And then press forward to come up. So this is a hard one. And then release. And then last one, take the brick to the back of the head, elbows in. Now lift the chin. Think about really elongating the neck here. And then pressing brick into head, letting the hands win. You can follow with your gaze. And then again, pressing the back of the head into the brick. Lifting the gaze up, keeping the neck long enough. And then reversing the action. And then come up, inhale. And then release. Now, just take a little neck roll. So you can just hold the brick in your hand. Let the chin drop down. Turn the chin towards the right shoulder so there's rotation. Then lift the chin forward and up so the ear comes to the shoulder so that there is lateral flexion. Then rotate the head back. Be very careful here. Keep lifting the head away from the neck. There's no need to go far. Extension. Then let the left ear come toward the left shoulder and the face turns forward, so it's a lateral flexion. Then go into rotation. Turn the chin towards the left shoulder, so you're turning the head to the side. Then circle the chin down towards the chest. And then lift the head back up. Great. Release the brick between your legs or whatever you have there. And we need one thing, brick or book, and we need your blanket. But first of all, you can just put the brick to one side and take the blanket back to the back of the mat. This is very similar to, this is in fact, the same that we did in the beginning. So come down, place the head on the blanket, and you could even use your hands to offset the head. So have the fingers around the head, lift the head, shift it over to the right, let the head come back down, then turn your left, uh, I was going to say the left chin, turn your chin towards the left shoulder. And you can adjust your head a little bit with your hands so that the forehead comes in, the chin comes in a little bit more, and then release your arms down. And then just like we did in the beginning, a little bit of rocking, very gently. So for all the strong neck work, this is just a release, an easing out. And then stop the rocking action. You could have one hand on your forehead, one hand to the back of the head, and bring the head back. So you're carrying it back with the hands. Then shift the head over to the left, offsetting the head. Then turn the chin towards the right. Lengthen the back of the head away from the neck, chin in, forehead in, and then release your arms by your side and start the rocking. And then stop the rocking. Use your hands to bring the head to center, and then slip the fingers to the back of the head, tuck the chin in, and then curl up to sit. And you probably want to slip your feet away from you a little bit as you do this, or you may rock up to sit. And then we'll set up for a variation of Shavasana. And this can be quite a strong shoulder stretch. So see how you go. So you may just want a ordinary regular Shavasana. Take your blanket and roll it up. And this is going to be for the head. And then take your whatever you have here. Now, if you have something that is a lot flatter than a brick, maybe it's a book, then I would use a few books and use that for the blanket, and I'd use the blanket instead of the brick. So you have your setup like this, like a T shape. This is for the head, this is for the space between the shoulder blades. So this could well be the rolled up blanket, and it might work better, and then you also can regulate the height of it. And then you come down so that the brick is just between the shoulder blades, and the back of the head comes onto the top of the roll, and your arms can be cactus arms. So the elbows are on the floor and the fingers are up, so the elbows are bent at about 90 degrees. Now, this may well be too strong for the shoulders, or it may be too strong after a minute or so. And then feel free to take your arms further down, and that will make it more comfortable. But if you're okay here, then see if you can soften into this a little bit more. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to find just the right spot for the brick between the shoulder blades. Personally, I quite like to have the brick on the medium height just because then there's a narrower bit between my shoulder blades. But this makes it a stronger back bend, and it may well mean that you also need something underneath your forearms to bring the forearms up, because otherwise the shoulder stretch is much deeper. So it can take a little while to settle here. So give it a chance for the settling to happen. But if after a few breaths you notice that it's just uncomfortable and just poking in just the wrong places, then by all means change, come out of this, and relax in a more comfortable position. So we'll be here for another 2, 3 minutes. So just inviting the body to rest and relax into this. Now, gently take your arms down by your side a little more. Let the fingers slide out and down. Notice how that changes the sensations in the shoulders. And then roll over to your right hand side, rolling off your props. Gather your knees close to the belly, maybe slipping the blanket underneath the right ear if it's handy enough, or use an arm. And then make your way up to sit. And you could slip the rolled blanket just at the back of the sitting bones, sitting up a little higher. And just feel the posture. Maybe close your eyes just for a moment, just feeling the arrangement of the torso, the shoulders. How does the back feel? How does the neck feel? How does the head sit on top of the spinal column? And place your palms one on top of the other on the center of the chest, one hand on top of the other. Take a big inhale. And then exhale, let the chin come down towards the chest. And just a moment of gratitude that you're looking after yourself and making time for your own health and well-being. Namaste.